What's up, everybody? It's your homegirl Cassidy, and today I'm going to be talking to you about ecotourism in the Galapagos. So, what is ecotourism? It's defined by the International Tourism Society as responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment and improves the welfare of local people. The main aim of ecotourism is to benefit the environment and community visited by raising awareness and appreciation for the local culture and the unique environment, while mainly not causing harm to it. The big challenge with ecotourism in the Galapagos is trying to find a balance between environmental sustainability while also allowing local populations to advance economically and also while allowing tourists to explore and learn about the natural world. We know from discussing this in class that that is a really difficult balance to maintain, especially when there are different groups of people being concerned about different competing aspects of ecotourism. Like scientists and conservationists who are worried about sustaining the environment, the local population who are worried about their resources and their own businesses, and also other businesses who are worried about economics and how they're going to make money. Now, along with ecotourism comes greenwashing, which is described by the International Business and Economics Research Journal as a type of dishonest tourism operation, which in appearance promotes ecotourism, but only as a selling angle while actually not practicing it. And that leads us into our next topic, the pros and cons of ecotourism. The benefits are what we're going to start out with, and the first is that ecotourism helps the Galapagos National Park and other service foundations gain funds for its management for scientific research and for conservation projects. And all of these rely mostly on donations that come from big corporations or from tourists. Second, and this is probably obvious, but ecotourism raises awareness about environmental conservation and endangered species. This is especially important in the Galapagos because they have such unique and endangered environments and species. Third, and we've talked about this a lot in previous presentations, but ecotourism and tourism generally provides the biggest source of income to the local Galapagos. In fact, in 1999, it was reported that 40% of the Galapagos population was employed within the tourism sector, and more recent estimates have said that tourism is responsible for 78% of all employment on the islands. Lastly, and we touched a little bit on this in one of the previous presentations, but ecotourists can also help watch for and report illegal fishing, hunting, or other environmentally dangerous illegal activities. And now we get to touch on some of the less great things that ecotourism has encouraged in the Galapagos. The tourism industry and how big and booming it is in the Galapagos provides an incentive for people to immigrate illegally to the islands looking for work, which puts additional strain on the island's limited resources, infrastructure, and environment. And it's predicted that as tourism grows, so will immigration. And let's not forget that the tourists themselves also put a strain on the island's resources, infrastructure, and environment. More tourists on the island also equals more waste, more pollution, and more environmental disturbance. The next huge thing that we've talked about a lot in class and in these presentations is invasive species like the goats and the rats that were introduced to the Galapagos and had a lot of harmful effects on the environment. More tourists means that there's more chances of invasive species coming to the island. On the Galapagos, they're pretty careful about that on monitoring it, but accidents do happen, and the more people coming in from other countries or even from mainland Ecuador increases the likelihood of invasive species coming with them. When listing the benefits, I brought up how the biggest source of income to the local Galapagos population is the tourism industry, but a lot of the money made in ecotourism can, instead of going to the local population or to nonprofits, goes to the big companies who are operating cruises and tours. And so that means that the local population and the nonprofits that really need the money in order to keep the Galapagos pristine is not getting it. But they're still taking the brunt of all of the damage to the environment and their infrastructure, resources, and all other ill effects that come along with the tourists disturbing the environment. All of these pros and cons highlight what's usually referred to as the Galapagos paradox. And this describes how people want to visit the Galapagos Islands because of their uniqueness and specialness due to their geographic isolation and endemic species. But when tourists visit the islands, they endanger the same conditions which drew them there in the first place. In an effort to make ecotourism safer and more sustainable in the Galapagos, the Ecuadorian government, the Galapagos National Park Directorate, and the UN have imposed strict rules and regulations that all tourists and tourism operators must follow. I'm not going to go through every single rule because there's a lot of them, and we have discussed a lot of them in class, but I'll bring up a few of them that are more important and some that you might not have heard before. The most important and most talked about rule is that visitors to any protected areas within the Galapagos National Park must be accompanied by a naturalist guide authorized by the Galapagos National Park Directorate. And in that same line, travel is only permitted with tour operators and boats who are authorized to work in the protected areas of the Galapagos. You must remain on marked trails at visitor sites. You must maintain a distance of at least 6 feet or 2 meters from wildlife. And some of the ones that I hadn't heard before, but make sense, is that no flash photography is permitted when taking pictures of wildlife, and smoking and campfires are strictly prohibited. The biggest measure that regulates how tourism and ecotourism is operated in the Galapagos was the 1998 special law for the Galapagos. And this was passed by the Ecuadorian government to limit immigration to the islands, and it appropriates more revenue from the tourism industry directly into conservation efforts. Today, up to 50% of all financial gains from national park fees are reinvested into attempts to conserve the islands. Now, enforcement of the law is reportedly still spotty and not entirely successful, but there is an abundance of local support for it. In conclusion, ecotourism is expected to keep increasing in the Galapagos, which will provide economic support to the island's population and conservation efforts, but will likely also speed up and increase the island's ecological degradation. So there's that whole list of pros and cons, and for the future of the islands, we're going to need to figure out how to balance both of those. But thanks for coming to my TED Talk, and I'll see you guys in class soon.